All right, thanks everybody for coming. This is the Community Preservation Committee's plan rollout. It's September 7th. And I just want to welcome our committee. They're in front of us. But I'll start. My name's Rob Levash. I'm the chair of the committee. Jenny?
Jenny Russell, vice chair.
Pete Jackson, treasurer.
Linda's not here.
Tom Callahan, Affordable Housing Trust. Jay Carroll, Park Commission.
Wendy's not here.
Rich Wheeler.
Joe's not here, and Kathleen's not here as well. So, I'd like to just start off first with any citizen speak. Anybody who's in the crowd that would like to have any questions for our board, you're welcome to have the floor. If you want to just raise your hand, I can acknowledge you. Yes.
Thank you. I'm Jeff Wilkinson, and I live at 199 Beacon Street in Precinct 10. And my wife Sally and I moved here 34 years ago. We raised our kids in the Milton Public Schools. I served in town meeting for 20 years. And I'm a co-founder of Affordable Inclusive Milton, AIM. You can find us on the web at miltonaim.org. Our mission is to increase the amount of affordable housing in Milton and promote a racially and economically diverse population throughout the geography of the town. And I'm sorry I couldn't participate in the public hearings. I appreciate the citizens speaking the opportunity to speak briefly. In favor of your committee's allocation of funding to affordable housing. I want to add to that personal introduction that I'm an avid outdoorsman and a student of history. So I appreciate all three pillars of the Community Preservation Act and what it is designed to support. And I particularly appreciated prior comments to the committee by green space advocates and historic preservation advocates about opportunities for synergy among the three pillars. So creative investment of CPA funds to incorporate sustainable design and building in producing affordable housing was something else brought up, and we think that's a great idea. AIM is asking this committee to allocate at least 1/3 of available funds to the Milton Affordable Housing Trust to support affordable housing development. We could easily make the case for a higher allocation percentage-wise, and many communities are doing it, but that's not where we're headed as the committee gets underway. We're just asking for an equal share of whatever's apportioned. There are many reasons to support affordable housing in Milton. I just want to, in the interest of brevity, I just want to mention three. Milton shares in the regional crisis of affordable access, affordable housing supply. And it's in all of its dimensions: economic stability, diversity and inclusion, and more. It's right here. It's not out there someplace. Many families who live here now would not be able to afford their own homes if they were trying to buy now. The median home value here is $925,000. It would take about a $200,000 income to be able to afford to buy it. Our median income is just over $141,000. So we need to assure that young families can move here and live here, including kids that we raise. We need to assure that seniors can stay here. We need to assure that people who serve the town, clergy, teachers, other town employees, can afford to live in it. Second, we're leading, and that is we're lagging where we should be leading. Milton is less than halfway to reaching our state mandated goal of assuring at least 10% of our housing stock is affordable. We have a dismal record in comparison to many neighboring communities. We have grown more racially diverse over the years, but we have a history of exclusionary zoning practices. So this committee's decisions to help promote affordable housing can help Milton forge a path of prosperity and equity and ensure a vital future for all of us. Finally, we need alternatives to 40B development projects, over which the town has little control. Investing CPA funds in the Milton Affordable Housing Trust will allow us to leverage additional funding to develop housing with local leadership, local expertise, and locally driven partnerships. Let's change the narrative about affordable housing in Milton so that every time we pick up the Milton Times, we're reading about creative, proactive development instead of opposition to 40B developments that a lot of us would agree are not suitable for the town. So we hope again that you'll allocate a third of available funds for affordable housing. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the crowd that would like to speak?
Hi there. I'd love to say just what he said. I'm not that eloquent. My name is Julie Kramer. I live at 58 Frothingham Street. I've lived here for 21 years. I've raised my 2 boys here. I love my town. I am the chair of the Affordable Housing Trust, and so I respectfully ask that you support our application for funding into the Affordable Housing Trust. I have used Affordable Housing Trust funds in my day job on many developments, and I will say it's an important tool. I'm so happy we have this tool. I want to see it used to its fullest. I want it to use as leverage to build housing that the town wants, needs, supports, recommends, and I think this is a great way to do it. With a healthy, affordable housing trust, it sends the right signal. It tells developers who want to build the right type of housing here that we're open for business and we're ready to be flexible, to be able to respond to opportunities and create the type of housing that everyone in the town can say, that's in my town. So I appreciate your time. I'll give back my 3 minutes.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak tonight? There will be plenty of time. I also want to say that even though this seems very formal, you can stop me at any time. Raise your hand. If there's any questions during a slide, raise your hand, ask away, and then at the end I'll also have a final slide that questions and answers at the end as well. This really is a 411 on CPA, so apologize for anybody who doesn't know about CPA. This is going to be a kind of information session on what the CPA is. This is what we'll cover. We'll cover the CPC timeline. Our committee's been together for about just over a year now. We'll look at the minimum funding allocation per state law, the allowable spending purposes, specifically the CPA in our town in Milton, where our funds are today in the fund activity, what our membership and role of the CPC is, the CPA application process, and I'll kind of go over that and the timelines and deadlines for that, and the guiding principles and priorities of our committee to recommend some of the funding for town meeting. And then lastly, I'm just going to finish with community housing goals, historic preservation goals, and then the open space and recreation goals as well. I think in past meetings we have recognized opportunities, and we also have on our table tonight the community preservation plan. It is posted on our town website now, so it's easily downloadable. If you go to the left-hand side of the menu screen, you'll find the community preservation plan. You can click on that and download it. This really is a little bit more of a brief summary of that plan. And tonight we also have printed copies, so if anybody wants to leave with a printed copy, you're more than welcome to take them. And then we also have application forms on the left side as well as this table that you can take with you to fill out and give to the group. So just the CPC timeline, our committee was formed in June last year, 21, and really the first 6 months or so, we really met with town committees and boards to understand their goals and opportunities. And in the spring of 22, our committee completed our first draft of the community preservation plan. We are committed to having a public forum, so we had our first public forum on June 2nd, and somewhere in the middle of June, it was our spring town meeting that kind of got postponed. That was a town meeting that we appropriated the fiscal year 2023 funds, and then in July 1st was our first eligibility application opened. And here we are today. This is September 1st, our community preservation plan was posted to the website. So it's been out for about a week now. And then what's important is to look at these two dates. I think in the next couple of months is really going to be some heavy lifting for our committee. We'll be reviewing eligibility applications. So just so everyone understands, those are due October 1st. That's not too far away, only a couple weeks away. And then we have elected to do a two-step process in our application process. So the first one is the eligibility. The second one is the funding application. I will get into that a little bit later to kind of go through the details of both of those applications, but those are due January 1st. And the reason why we're under kind of this timeline is that we need to draft articles and motions to be sent to select board and the warrant committee so that they're ready for the spring town meeting, which will be in May. So there may be some time lapse that we may extend some of those dates, but for now, that's kind of what we're looking at. And then just so everyone understands, it won't be until July 2023 that grant agreements will be made with successful applicants. So it's just starting off, what is the Community Preservation Act? The CPA is a state law passed in 2000 that allows Massachusetts committees to conduct a referendum to add a small surcharge on local property taxes. When combined with matching funds from the statewide Community Preservation Trust Fund, this dedicated fund is used to build and rehabilitate parks, playgrounds, recreational facilities, protect open space, support local affordable housing development, and preserve historic buildings and resources. The town of Milton adopted the Community Preservation Act in 2020. So as I just mentioned, the funds will be available in fiscal year 2023 for Milton CPA projects. Just some quick facts on CPA statewide impact. 65% of cities and towns in Massachusetts have adopted the CPA, around 189. I think there's even been a couple more since this chart's been put up. $2.65 billion have been raised, over 32,000 acres of open space have been preserved, 3,000 outdoor recreation projects have been created, and then housing units, 8,700 housing units have been created with 14,700 housing units supported. And lastly, 6,300 historic preservation projects have been supported as well. So the minimum funding allocation per state law. So the graph on your right side here is just kind of a breakdown of how we need to basically put in the certain groups. So 10% each is given to community housing, historic preservation, and then open space and recreation is one bucket. And so that makes up the 30%. And then kind of the last 65% is undesignated. Basically, any of those funds can be used for any of the other three buckets, and then 5% is given to administration for the committee. And then just a quick recap on the bottom is just in fiscal year 2022, our CPA funds was around $750,000. In fiscal year 2023, our projected CPA funds is a little over $1 million, so it's about $1.75 million. And I just wanted to note that the first year we're not allowed to have the state match. The second year is when we will get the state match. So we will be seeing that in November. So this is a pretty big chart, and I think it will be a little bit of some explaining. I think the kind of color-coded categories, community housing is blue, historic preservation is purple, open space is green, recreation is orange. What's good about this is the project eligibility in terms. So on the left side of the graph really is to whether you can acquire, which is obtained by gift, purchase, devise, grant, rental, lease, or otherwise. You may do that for any of these categories. To create or to bring into being or cause to exist, yes, you can do that for community housing. Historic preservation, no, you cannot. It's history, so you can't do that. Open space and recreation, you can do that. preserve protection of personal or real property from injury, harm, or destruction. All the categories fulfill that. Rehabilitate and restore, all the categories also fulfill that. I think what's important here to note is community housing or open space, if it is acquired or created by the use of CPA funds, you can then rehabilitate and restore that. And then support, the only category that you can support, which is providing grants, loans, or rental assistance, security deposit, interest rate write-downs, or other forms of assistance directly to individuals or families who are eligible for community housing, or to an entity that owns, operates, or manages such housing for the purposes of making housing affordable. That is only community housing category. And then just near the top, you'll kind of see kind of the categories of what they're used for. So housing for low and moderate income individuals, families, including low or moderate income seniors, age 60 plus. Moderate income is less than 100% of U.S. HUD area-wide mean income, and low income is less than 80% AMI. Buildings, structures, vessels, real property, documents, or artifacts can be classified under historic preservation. They need to be listed on the state register or historic places and determined by the Historic Commission to be significant in history, archaeology, architecture, or culture of Milton. Land to protect, existing and future well fields, aquifers and recharge areas, watershed land, agriculture land, grasslands, forest land, fresh and salt marshes, and other wetlands, ocean, rivers, streams, lakes, ponds, frontage, beach, dunes, and other coastal lands to protect scenic vistas, land for wildlife or nature preserve land for recreation. And lastly, the recreation is land for active or passive recreational use, including but not limited to community gardens, trails, non-commercial youth and adult sports use as a park, playground or athletic fields, shall not include horse or dog racing, artificial turf, or the use of land for a stadium, gymnasium, or similar structure. So this is a very good chart. Anybody who's looking to apply for funds can reference this chart, and it kind of gives you a good idea of what is applicable. So just a little bit about the CPA in Milton. The CPA surcharge in Milton is 1%. It was a 1% surcharge. Their cities and towns have gone up to 3%. So just kind of giving you a CPA surcharge example. The average assessed home value, which Glenn said is $925 now. Inflation's played a huge role in the last 2 years. When we did this example, it was around $824,000. So the first $100,000 of that is exempt. The total taxable value is $724 in this example, and the fiscal 22 residential tax rate was per 1,000 was $1,248. So the property tax due was around $9,041, and there's the 1% tax surcharge. So the average Milton homeowner paid into this about just a little bit over $90, and I would imagine that will slightly increase next year with inflation. This is just an overview of the CPA fund activity. As I said previously, it was just over $1 3/4 million. So just a breakdown of our total CPA funds. $753,000 was for fiscal year 2022. That's actual funds. And the fiscal year 2023, I think we're getting pretty close to that. These are the real numbers. It's just over $1 million. We have broken out the funds in these 5 buckets. The administrative funds, there's about $51,000 available total. And then the 3 categories are about $178,000 each of the community housing, historic preservation, open space, and rec. And then the last one is the budgeted reserve. That's 65% left over that could be used for any of the categories. That's around $1.2 million. So all in total, it's about $1.70 million. So just a little bit about the membership and role of the CPC. I think, as I mentioned, over the last year, what we really did, what our committee really tried to do was look at the needs assessment, meet with town boards and committees. So whether it's the select board, the conservation commission, the historical commission, the planning board, the parks commission, housing trust, and the housing authority. Really what we try to do is, meet with all of them, seek input, learn their opportunities and goals, and then one of the important traits was to really create this community preservation plan and roll all of those kind of opportunities into the plan. And that needs to be updated yearly. So the good thing is we got this out of our off of our lap, but we will have to update it yearly as the committee goes on, just so that we can stay on track with different opportunities and goals. And then lastly, as I had mentioned previously, it's really a recommendation to town meeting. This committee, even though we will be reviewing applications and discussing the applications, it will really be our recommendation to move from one step to 2 steps, and then to our recommendations to town meeting. I think what's important to just to break down a little bit, the town meeting may make appropriations from or reservations of money in the Community Preservation Fund in the amount recommended by our committee. It may reduce or reject any recommended amount. However, any motions to appropriate an amount of money less than the amount recommended by the CPC shall be based on a written cost estimate. And then town meeting may not increase any appropriation or reservation amount recommended by the CPC, and it may not appropriate or reserve any community preservation fund monies on its own initiative. So that's just an important piece. So getting to the CPA application process. As I mentioned, our committee had elected a 2-step process. Some cities and towns do 1 step. I think why we elected the 2-step process, we wanted to keep things simple, but what's nice is the first step is really this eligibility application, and just some of the pieces of this. Anybody can apply for funding, whether you're on a town meeting board, a town board or a committee, or whether you're just a resident, you can come to the committee and fill out an application. You will need just some, the name of who you are, your organization, your address, telephone, email. You will want to select a CPA category or one of the buckets, whether it's community housing, recreation, historic preservation, or open space. If there is more than 1 category, please select more than 1 category. That'll be important. And then just the CPA funding requested, the amount of money that you're looking for, and then the total project cost. And then a brief description. You can just give a brief description down in the bottom. Then anything else, if you have supporting information for your project, I would attach it to the application. That's always helpful for our committee. And as I said, I think the big deadline is coming up October 1st, so we're not too far away. And then between October and, it might be October and November that our committee will really review the applications. To date, there's been 2 applications. One has been the Affordable Housing Trust, the other one has been the Forbes House. We're looking for more. I think during our last meeting, there was a number of projects that came before our board that, I think there's some good ideas that are out there. We haven't received their application yet. So I'm hoping that we will get a little bit more engagement from the public. And I think this first year, I'm sure it's going to be a lot more us engaging people to get some projects before us. So the second piece, the funding application, is basically the same thing on the top. What's important here is the details, is kind of the last 5 details, is really the goals of the project, I think are important for that. A timeline, there really needs to be a project schedule for whatever project that you're looking to do. Critical milestones, and then when you anticipate a completion for the project. And then budget, the project budget is really important. I think it's going to be the total amount of the project cost, itemization of the components that you have with the project. Any additional funding sources will be important too. Please include those that are available, committed, or under consideration, and provide basis for your budget and sources and its estimation. And lastly, the one important piece is the support. I think we really want to see letters of support, so letters of support from town committees and boards, but also Milton residents, like, you know, meeting with Milton residents, getting letters of support from residents as well to our board. That will help us in determining what projects we fund and what projects we
Well, just so you know, that we can't really read what's
Yeah.
up there, so we
It's
Good
tough.
job.
And so, yeah, and the applications are up here as well, so I'm sure, oh yeah, you can, it's a little bit fuzzy. All right, so just guiding principles and priorities. The CPC will prioritize projects that are consistent with the community's needs and values, are publicly visible, accessible, and generate broad benefits to the overall community. Consider environmental sustainability and practices which benefit the long-term viability and maintenance of the project, supported by Milton's boards, commissions, departments, community groups, and public at large. And lastly, generally supported and have been identified as needs, goals, priorities in current townwide planning, and built upon the goals outlined in the community preservation plan. The CPC will prioritize projects that use CPA funding strategically, leverage the value of CPA capital through additional public or private funds, in-kind contributions, labor, materials, or other cost-saving measures, address urgent needs or time-sensitive opportunities in the community, demonstrate project feasibility with expertise and informed budget, a project schedule, maintenance plan, and overall budget, address 2 or more CPA focus areas or blended projects, and lastly, enhance or provide connectivity throughout the town. So the next couple of slides, I'm just going to get into the community housing, the open space, and recreation goals, as well as historic preservation. These are really just meant to be goals. As I said before in past meetings, we have identified different opportunities, and anybody who can look through the community preservation plan, you will see different opportunities that we've kind of listed out as different projects that are potential projects. So community housing goals are collaboration with Milton's Affordable Housing Trust to use CPA funding for their work plan and goals. Support economic and demographic diversity by funding the creation of community housing using Milton's housing production plan as a framework. Preserve long-term affordability for middle-aged and senior households who want to remain in the community. Support initiatives that include a local preference policy, as outlined by law and set by the DHCD, which is the Department of Housing and Community Development. Encourage smart growth development and housing projects through adaptive reuse of historic buildings, as well as creative zoning and infill projects. And support programs that provide direct housing assistance for low to moderate income households. The historic preservation goals. The Community Preservation Act provides funding to help preserve historic resources. Milton is a very historic town, and the Community Preservation Committee has worked in conjunction with Milton's Historical Commission to identify certain opportunities. The town's historical and municipal buildings, potential reuse and rehabilitation of historic buildings, restoration of monuments, outbuildings, and murals, preservation of archival documents and records, and preservation and restoration of historic landscapes. Just some, I'll mention 2 that have been mentioned in past meetings. The former Milton Jail and Milton Landing is one that that's pictured on the top. And then the Milton firehouses, which I think everyone knows we're kind of, all the firehouses are being rebuilt now. There is some that are historic, like the one right here in the center of town, which potentially, we could change out different materials if we wanted to, like a slate roof or things like that. There's potential opportunities to do CPA. So just some open space goals. Expand, preserve, and restore existing open space throughout the community for improved benefit and use, particularly along current and future trails and paths, the Blue Hills Reservation, river frontages, conservation land, and ponds. We want to capitalize on opportunities to acquire and create new public open spaces through purchase, restoration, and/or green conversion. and increase and improve access to and connectivity between current and future open space resources, preserve and restore wild and natural areas, native species, and wildlife habitats, and lastly, support climate resiliency and protect neighborhoods by expanding natural resources to mitigate the impact of flooding and climate change. And the last bucket is really the recreational goals. So it's similar to improving connectivity, access, safety, function of recreational resources through the community that serve residents of all ages, interests, and needs. Create and expand bike and pedestrian paths to connect neighborhoods with recreational and community resources, and to ensure that residents can walk or ride safely from any point in town to any other. Identify new land for acquisition for parks and recreation, especially in underserved parts of town, and to accommodate future needs. Upgrade existing parks, including athletic facilities and ancillary facilities, to improve their utility, including improved drainage, irrigation, fencing, plantings, and team and spectator amenities. And lastly, looking for opportunities to expand recreational opportunities in existing parks and conservation areas. So I'm gonna end on that. I know that was a lot to look at and kind of review. As I said, those were really our goals, and I think there is a whole number of, bunch of opportunities in town under any of the three goals. But I just want to open it up to anyone in the audience to have any questions for our committee. Yeah, sure.
Yes, sure.
Yeah,
Just-
just come on.
If we're answering questions, Rebecca is not too good.
Yes.
I guess I don't understand the funding. So every year there's going to be more money coming in, and it's always going to be like $1 million a year, or how
Yeah,
does-
it'll be roughly around $1 million. So that first year was an anomaly because we didn't have that state match. This year, it's just over $1 million, and obviously with inflation, I think we'll see a little bit of an increase every year, but every year we're good.
But the
The size of the state match does fluctuate.
okay.
So right now,
It's like 20.
we're expecting, I think it's gonna be higher this year, or it's gonna be 30, I think it was 39% last year, it got up to that much.
It really
It
depends
depends
on,
on deed collections at the registry of deeds, so the amount of refinancings, mortgages, this legislature and the governor have sometimes put extra money into the pot. So all that goes into it. It's been as low as 14%, as high as 100% in the early years of it, but I think we're expecting 30-35% match roughly.
So the projects are meant to be, like the project would be this year's project, and then next year would be a different project, or are these projects meant, you could put in a 5-year project or something?
it really depends. So
Okay.
I think these are the funds that we have. We have about $1.75 million. I think as a committee, we need to decide how much we will fund this year. We may have a yearly budget that we want to fund, which is around $1 million. We haven't really decided that as a committee. But that is the bucket of money that we have currently that we're looking to do for just this year. And then as we go through, we'll have about $1 million.
And you do not have to spend all the money.
We don't have to spend
You
all.
don't have to spend it all in the same year. In some situations, in the early days of the Community Preservation Act, there were some towns who knew that they had some massive piece of farmland that was going to be coming up. And so they would save the money for the 3 or 4 years until, it could reach a significant size, and that would be enough for that project. Typically what we have is a grant agreement with the person, the organization to which we are giving the funding. And so sometimes I've done some where there's, a bucket first year, and then, we have to go back to town meeting every time to add in more.
Any other questions? Anybody?
Well, I don't know, does the recreation have to be outdoors, or could it be a building, or what?
Gotta be out.
Yeah, indoor recreation is not fundable.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Are you all subject to the open meeting law?
Yes.
Your deliberations are subject to open meeting law?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so it'll be,
So-
when we
so-
do decide,
Yeah.
it'll be a public.
So our next meeting, just so everyone knows, is October 19th. That will be a first meeting that will review applications.
But if we had a situation where we were negotiating a purchase for a piece of property, that actually is an executive session. And that deliberation can be done in executive session and come out and announce the outcome. So if we had a situation where we were talking about a piece of parcel, it hurts us if the seller knows how much we think we want to pay. So those things are allowed to be in executive session.
Yes.
Can this money be used in the recreation to rehabilitate some of the town areas or sports, for instance, or it has to be a new project?
No, it can be used to rehab and rehabilitate.
What do you have?
Existing parks, you can
So Milton has a,
we don't have too many, we don't have a lot of open land in Milton to, put in.
right, so you could make a solicit the money to rehab something that we haven't owned by the town.
Correct. Anyone else have any questions?
I think there's a couple things that haven't been mentioned. There is the ability to bond projects if you have a larger project. You can sell bonds and pay it off over a number of years. So that's a way to do some larger projects or whatever. And it can be used on private property, but if there's a private thing, there has to be a conservation restriction on any of the improvements made through this. So, for example, the Forbes House is hoping to get some funding to help them restore some historic properties, but they would have to execute a conservation restriction to protect the investment that the town makes in that. So those are a couple, things on the edge of what we were talking about, kind of discrete.
And one important note on bonding is at town meeting, if we go to town meeting and we request funding, we need a 2/3 vote as opposed to just a majority. So if we go and ask at town meeting and we have the funds that we have, we only need 51%. But we need 2/3 for any potential bond.
Any ideas? There's lots of projects out there, just a matter of people, be willing to kind of do the work that's necessary, fill out an application and find support, but there's a lot to be done in town, and there's, it's been a long effort for advocates in town to get this passed, to have this funding available to us, so we hope that there's great participation and a lot of interest in taking advantage of the program.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see our committee continue to engage with the public. The fact that we only have 2 applications, I'm looking, next week I'll go back, I'm gonna go to the Parks and Recs committee, start going back to some of the boards in town to try to engage with them, because our committee doesn't create projects, residents of Milton create the projects, so I think it's just gonna be a lot of engagement over the next year to really see. Yes?
You specifically said it doesn't include anything for animals. Did I do that? Or did I see that?
I never,
I mean, in other words, I'm basically thinking of dog park.
a dog.
Town does not have
If you
dog
said
park.
park, we
Oh.
could do a park.
Yeah, dog parks, I think are.
I think that would be fun.
There was a question on that, one of those pages.
If you're creating a new park,
If you're creating this,
you can't do maintenance on something you already own. You have to do it, it has to be
The
new.
town doesn't have a dog park.
Right, so if they set aside some park land for
That's
dog
okay.
parks.
That's in the law, I'm pretty sure
But you
other
could-
communities have used it for dog parks specifically.
I'm sure you could put up fencing and whatever, fund a project for it, you could do it.
Right.
And the Conservation Commission can suggest a project, even though they're a town committee. No, but they've been
anybody
talking
in town
about
can
raising a
suggest a
bridge
project.
across around Pope's Pond.
Correct,
And
so that's one project
that's
that
a lot of
we,
money, $10,000, $20,000. They could do that. I'm hoping they do that. Who knows, they will.
yeah.
You mentioned you're looking for more public engagement and other ideas. Are there organizations that have been in touch? Are you aware of projects that are percolating but not submitted yet?
We are, so like during our last meeting, we heard about the Pope's Pond Trail connection. There's the playground planners who put all the new playgrounds in town are looking to do potentially a playground over by Pope's Pond as well. And they came to us. Peverly Park. So there is, I've heard from different groups of people that come to me and mention things, but they haven't put in an application yet.
Yeah, I mean, one thing people here could do is talk it up among your neighbors and your networks and stuff like that. It is a new law, and I think it does take time for new communities like Milton to sort of get used to this regular funding cycle and the fact that funds are available and applications. So I think we're hoping it spreads by outreach we're going to do, by word of mouth, by really sort of going, engaging with town boards and commissions, but also residents. And I think where it's worked well, it's a good mix of town boards and committees recommending things and sort of grassroots, sort of neighborhood residents coming up with their own ideas. Some of those may not be ready for funding year one, but we still want to see them because that administrative budget, for instance, some of that could potentially be used for technical assistance to help somebody get from an idea to a project that's fundable. And I think that's an important, especially if I'm a citizen with an idea, I might not know how to convert it into a fundable project that has a budget and has a scope that we can deal with as an agency that is funding it. So I think good ideas we would like to help nurture, basically, if people come to us with those
And we should also introduce Julie again.
Yeah.
Raise your hand. She's
She's-
been hired as our administrator.
Is the application process only open once per year?
I mean,
Because this is our inaugural year, and the timeline that I showed really is because we only have, spring town meeting. I guess as we go forward, there'll be a fall town meeting. So we could, this could change over the year, right? So we may have to open it up again in the spring. But this initial one's really for that spring town meeting.
It feels very quick.
It is very quick. And
But we
I'm
just have to-
assuming we'll also let this slide a little bit, a few weeks. But we're kind of under the gun because of the spring meeting, and our committee needs to meet on the projects. The first one is really simple though. The eligibility application is pretty simple to fill out. And then it will really be January for do the funding application. That'll be a little bit more involved, and we want to see a lot more details for that application.
We have been out there with this October deadline for at least a month already.
2 months. I mean,
A
it
couple
was
months.
July. Yeah, it was July 1st when the eligibility application came out.
And then, we told people, so that's how we got a couple applications in, but, it's a simple application.
It is.
The idea is to come up with the idea and the plan, but the application itself is very simple, and that's why we did it that way.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing I would say, just to that question, is we have a lot of flexibility. The state law does not mandate once a year, twice a year, depending on the town meeting would govern how many times, they can vote on it, but depending on how many town meetings are. But we could in the future move to a rolling application, right? I mean, just have an open application. That may be something. Yeah, we'll have to,
we may do that.
we're just doing this process for year one. We'll evaluate it. That's part of our charge, is to keep improving the process and look at other communities and what they found to be successful as well.
Yeah.
You mentioned an interest in collaborating with town boards and committees. I'm just wondering, under the support provisions of community housing, would it be allowable for the Milton Housing Authority, for instance, to seek funds to support in Section 8 vouchers in town, for instance? And if so,
Well, local rental systems,
Local
local
rentals.
rentals.
not Section 8 specific, but Section 8 like, right? No?
Yeah, we could do rental assistance, that was a COVID program that was adopted to
Yeah.
help out people during COVID. But you always have to worry about the supplanting issue. So if the housing authority has its usual funding, we can't step in and replace the funding that it normally has. That's a supplanting problem. So we have had situations, and it's been an ongoing argument about what housing authorities can ask for. And so maintenance, obviously not, because it was purchased with CPA money. But if they had some major, some major rehabilitation of a building or something, that might be something that might work. But it's a very tricky thing with housing authorities, it's an ongoing argument.
Committees have looked favorably on, to Kathleen's point of view, on public housing authorities, that, when the housing authority is in danger of losing a unit, but for capital improvements, an example would be, the roof is leaking, you can't rent the apartment with a leaking roof, and they've got no other source for funding of that, then we can save a unit, right? We can, or bring back a unit, by doing that. But Kathleen said, it is, the supplanting issue is a big issue, and we have a responsibility to make sure we're not just replacing funding for any of the uses. Conservation, open space, recreation, open space, or historic preservation, same.
I just want to, I don't know if I understood correctly or enough. So it sounds to me like the process is October 1st. What if we are not quite ready? What would you say would be the next time that we could maybe apply? That's not for sure yet.
If you're
Is
not
that
for
right?
sure yet,
No,
We have-
if we miss the October because we're not quite ready,
yeah.
when might you be offering the next round? And I don't know if I heard clearly what that was.
We haven't.
We haven't decided yet.
Okay.
We haven't decided yet. I will say, if you're not ready for October 1st, it's still good to get in touch with our committee, make communication with us, just to talk about your project. I think it'll be really important. We're here to help, initiate this process.
And it also helps us from a budgeting point of view.
Yes.
Rob said, we don't have to give up all the money every year. And so if we know somebody's working on a really great project that's going to come in the second year, we may decide to hold back some money so that we have more money to give in year two. And so I just echo what Rob said. It's just communication with us so that we know what's coming in, even if it's 12 months away, is helpful for planning purposes.
And I know Josh isn't here tonight, but it's either Josh, that would be the person to get in touch with, or get in touch with me. You can always send an email. Yeah.
I have a question. So any group of like 10 people
Yeah.
can just fill out an application?
You can.
I can.
Yeah.
One person.
One person
Oh, one
can go
person.
fill out.
Okay,
Yep.
but, and I don't have to be like a nonprofit or something.
No.
Okay.
You could be a resident and fill out.
I'm a resident
a form.
and I want a project.
You want a project?
I fill out the application.
Yep.
What if I don't have a real good estimate as to the cost of my project?
Well, like I said, I think we need work with our committee. We'll kind
I
of
mean, I
help you.
could tell you it's
Right.
gonna be $200,000.
Well, so that's when, like Tom said, we will have to help you out, and we do have this bucket of money, and a number of us, I'm sure, can help you with some of these things as well.
Okay, but as a private citizen, I can do that.
Yeah.
And I don't have to work with Park and Rec or,
Well, eventually, right, so like with your funding application, I don't know what project you're thinking of, but let's say you're doing a park project or something, we would want you to meet with the Parks and Rec, right? And so, but you could lead the charge, right? Like someone, for instance, I'll say the Pepperly Park playground, the playground thing. If they are leading it, like it's literally a group of moms, 3 moms that are leading that want this playground there, they could meet with the Parks and Rec department, get some support of their neighbors, and then, start putting that stuff together, then they can come before the board.
But the
Right,
property's on the town land, so,
Right.
you're gonna have to involve the town.
Right.
Yeah,
anyway,
right. You'll have to,
And eventually, there'll have to be a recipient of the funding, right? Individuals would not be an appropriate recipient of the funding, except for like down payment assistance or rental assistance, so,
You mean I'd have to put the money in the bank?
no.
Do I have to go on?
So, I guess I'm trying to say, we wouldn't cut the check to you. You seem like an honest person. But, so in that case, just to use that example Rob's using, the Friends of Pebble Park incorporating as a nonprofit and being a recipient, that's a potential recipient of funds, or the town Parks and Rec, the town body itself. So there's all different types of, but we need to have an entity, a corporation that, nonprofit or a town body that is.
that will receive funds.
Can receive funds and can enter into a grant agreement that will satisfy the lawyers in the room.
So if you-
That was your,
And
that was your pepper.
I will, and then I will say, for some of the private nonprofits that are here and in the rooms, it will be important to get some fund, outside funding as well.
Matching.
Matching funds.
So I'm on the town shade tree committee, it's a town committee, and, there's a big deficit in street trees. And the town puts in maybe 30,000 a year or whatever, just to sort of try to keep up. But to actually get the deficit taken care of, I could see our committee asking for maybe 50,000 just every year, just to get more and more trees on the street. Now, is that something that comes under?
I don't think.
Wait,
we
you
can
were-
do it.
you- you
Yeah,
were stumping-
no,
you were stumping
I
us.
don't think, I'm pretty sure you couldn't do it.
You
You
couldn't?
can't fund.
And why is that?
It's on town-owned land that wasn't required with CPA money, and that's really kind of the maintenance thing.
It is kind of maintenance, yes, I agree, but it's a huge deficit and,
No, that's
from
really
the past.
kind of the town responsibility.
You can't do maintenance.
Okay,
What you should do is, what they could do is if they had that money, if they had some other project, like doing the bridge around Post Pond, and we gave money for that, then they would have money available to
For the
potentially
trees.
buy some trees. So, that's not that.
okay.
This is a fantastic thing for town Milton, so we're hugely appreciative of all this work you guys have done. Question, if you make an application, how does the feedback loop work? Once we made the application for the next round of funding, how does the feedback loop work?
I'm glad that you guys are here. I'm glad that the Affordable Housing Trust is here. I'll speak up and say, I'm glad to see you guys here. It would be great if you were here on October 19th for when we do discuss your application. I think it would be good so that you can give us more input on your project specifically so that we're not trying to read between the lines of your application. So I think that would be important. And that's why I think we can get feedback back and forth to whether, to the second step, to the funding application, we can make tweaks to certain projects.
But I don't know if you noticed on the deadline, but it was, our next meeting is October 19th, I think. So the idea is to give feedback so that those who are eligible then can apply for the second application process, which is more detailed.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, I would imagine there would be conversations happening, just getting more, collecting more detail and having conversations about all.
And I would point out that on the Community Preservation Coalition website, there's an entire database of all the projects that have been funded over the years with CPA money. And it really gives you a wonderful picture of the way these funds have been used. I would take a look at that. They're all categorized by the different categories, and so you can see which town has done what over the years. It's really great.
What's the website again?
It's Community Preservation Coalition, so it's communitypreservation.org.
It's a great website. They're a great group, so our committee is a member of that. And so we also have the resources, as Tom said, to use to help out as well as our.
I had a follow-up question to the comment about the matching funds for a nonprofit. Is that a one-to-one match or just showing that we do have other sources of support?
Yeah, and it's not even a firm requirement.
It's not a firm requirement, I think it'll be,
It will help you
It's helpful.
score higher.
yeah, you will score high.
You know, again, that's something we may get more formal in future years, but I think it always helps to, Julie mentioned this in her, leverage. You know, any funder likes to see leveraging, and that's always good. And we might not, for large projects, we might not have the funding, obviously, to fund 100% of every need.
Anyone else?
Spread the word.
So, and then the only two things are we will be, our committee will be at Celebrate Milton, which is the first weekend in October. So we'll be out there, we'll have a table to spread the word about the committee and the CPA cons. And then, as we mentioned, October 19th is a big day. And we'll get back to you guys and get you the time and everything. That would be the meeting to get to, for sure. And that's it. Yeah, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.